Alright, hello everyone. I'm going to be reading semi-dramatically a fanfiction on fanfiction.net called Play by Sound of Rainfall. I hope you all enjoy my first reading. A puff of freezing steam escaped the alicorn's lips as she reflected, eyes closed and basking in the chilling wind around her. Flakes of the white powder covering the ground whipped up, splashing against her ivory coat in a wave caused by the rippling breeze. The sensation of the cold snow against her body did nothing to faze her as the snowflakes melted against her natural warmth, streaming downward through her fur as she sat still, lost in thoughts about the past. Such contemplations had always been regular for Celestia, but recently they had increased to a disturbing frequency. The pony turned her head and cast a longing glance behind her, catching the ghost of her multicolored mane in her sight as it wrapped back around her neck in the harsh wind. The capital city of Canterlot stood upon its monumental cliffs in the distance, shining as a gold and white beacon against the otherwise stale air of the far mountains. Where the princess sat alone upon a snow-covered hill, there was nothing to interrupt her thoughts or cloud her memories. The only sounds were those of the creaking pine trees and the winter breeze, and the occasional bird call from places unknown. Celestia shifted, moving to lie down fully upon the crystallized grass beneath her. The passage of time meant nothing on this day, and the pony found herself incredibly grateful for the impromptu cancellation of all official duties. The first snowfall of the year was always a cause for celebration, and the monarch had declared the day a holiday, partially to allow the ponies of her kingdom to enjoy the new weather, and even more so to allow herself to escape. Magenta eyes moved skyward as their owner heaved a sigh, trying her best to dispel her sudden depression. Affairs of the court, Lunar's return, Twilight and its relocation to Ponyville had all hit the alicorn harder than she would care to admit, and the combined stress was beginning to cause her to feel as though she was falling apart at the seams. Given that Luna had her own problems and Twilight was far too young to understand the depth and history behind Celestia's sadness, she often found herself retreating to faraway locations, just to get away. Today's location, a clearing in the middle of a pine forest, provided a perfect hiding spot from prying eyes that could catch her looking less than perfect. Or so she thought. A sudden rainbow caught Celestia's attention as she continued to gaze at the fluffy clouds above, and she quickly whipped her head to the side to catch the strange phenomenon. Realization hit her right as the sound of a pony screaming across the sky did, coupled by another rainbow trail looming just over the trees. Only one Pegasus would leave that kind of trail, and Celestia's heart rate immediately doubled as her thoughts swam with worry.
Loyalty. Oh dear. Don't let her see me. Please, don't let her see me.
The alarmed alicorn quickly stood, doing her best to shake the melting snow from her body and wings as the light blue Pegasus looped about in the air above her. With a quick flap of her wings, she recovered the grass left bare beneath her where she stood, her body heat having melted the snow. All evidence of her presence erased, Celestia turned to begin running into the forest, only to hear a scuffing sound behind her as another body landed in the clearing, kicking up a cloud of powder.
Princess Celestia? Oh my gosh!
The alicorn turned slowly, blushing slightly as she regarded the bowing Pegasus before her. There stood, or rather, kneeled, Rainbow Dash, the tips of her multicolored mane swaying against the snow as she bowed low before her princess. Celestia's heart sank as she realized that her tiara, necklace, and shoes were back in the palace, giving her a somewhat less than professional appearance. She silently prayed that her subject wouldn't comment on her missing garb, as she watched the shivering Pegasus rise, nose now covered in snow from her sudden, panicked bow.
Rainbow Dash, I must say your visit is unexpected.
Celestia kept her tone even despite her slight blush, and had to redouble her efforts as her sopping mane lazily drooped over her shoulder. All the same, I am happy to see you. Were you looking for me? The alicorn tilted her head in an exaggerated motion, doing her absolute best to hide her warring emotions from the girl. Huh? Rainbow blinked in confusion and sat down in the snow, only to rise immediately as the cold sensation met her flank. She shivered in surprise and felt a scarlet wave flush over her face as Celestia suppressed a laugh. Oh, no, not really. I was practicing my moves and I saw a wavy, multicolory thing. It looked kind of weird, so I flew down to check it out. A wavy... my mane, perhaps? Celestia gave a forced smile, fighting back a sigh as the encounter only got more and more awkward. Yeah, probably. I mean, Rainbow extended a hoof, waving it before her in the air. Yes, you're a princess ship. The Pegasus dipped her head, giving her own forced smile as she looked away. Please, Rainbow, there is no need for formality, especially given how unprepared I am to receive you. Another puff of steam trailed its way into the air, dissipating against the clear sky as Celestia sighed once again. How are you, my friend? Rainbow sucked in a breath, flicking her tail and letting it flow wildly in the whistling breeze, as she sat gingerly into the snow. I'm cool. How about you? Rainbow bit her lower lip as Celestia blinked in surprise, and immediately stood once again. Too informal? Light laughter echoed across among the sounds of creaking trees as Celestia chuckled with mirth. With another sigh, she decided to relax her speech and follow her own advice. No, it's quite fine. Nobody ever really asks me how I'm doing anymore. I suppose I'm decent. I do not wish to keep you from practicing, though. Thank you for asking. Rainbow Dash shook her head. Decent? What's up? Rainbow slowly walked forward, kicking up tufts of powder as she went. Another shiver passed over her as she flicked the snow off of her wings, fluffing them out in an impressive display. Some pony as awesome as you shouldn't just be decent. A lopsided smile played across Celestia's lips as she slowly retreated, her sopping mane dragging against the fallen snow. I've just been reflecting. I sometimes find the need to do so. Alone. The princess prayed silently under her breath that the Pegasus would take the hint, only to have those hopes dashed. Literally. Oh, well that sucks. I mean, I guess if you're into that sort of thing it doesn't, but I hate all that quiet, solitary kind of stuff. Rainbow folded in her wings, blowing her mane out of her face as she cocked her head to one side. What you thinking about? Deciding that it would be easier to resign herself to fate than fight, Celestia gradually lowered herself back to the forest floor, settling in silently amid the snow. Luna, Twilight, Equestria, the past. Each of them deserves my attention, and it is sometimes difficult to divide it equally. The past? Rainbow sputtered in an exasperated tone. Why the hell are you dwelling on the past? I mean, no disrespect or whatever, but shouldn't we just let what happened stay in history? Especially if it's making you all sad. Sad? Celestia replied quickly, and the dragging sensation upon her heart increased even more as a lump formed in her throat. Yeah, you kinda look miserable. That's why I'm sticking around, unless you want me to go, I guess. Just trying to help a little? Rainbow once again tilted her head, adding a cheesy smile as she moved to sit next to her princess. Celestia extended a wing, hesitantly wrapping it around the shivering mare beside her, to give the pony warmth as she began to speak. My little pony, while I do appreciate the offer, I don't think that is something you or any pony else for that matter, would be capable of helping with. I'm loath to admit it, but my position puts me under quite a fair amount of stress. And when the ghosts of the past come calling, it is magnified to unbearable levels. No offense to you, but I would prefer to be alone for a time. Perhaps we can speak later? With her diplomatic side shining through in full effect, Celestia once again thought that she had fixed the situation. Unfortunately for her, the day still held many surprises. Nah, I know I'm probably not the best pony to be talking to, and, I guess you could just, order me away. Rainbow shrank down a bit under the pressure of the massive wing wrapped around her body, silently hoping that she would be allowed to stay. But, there's no harm in trying, right? I won't say anything to any pony, I promise. I just want to help. Aren't you the one always teaching Twilight lessons about friendship and stuff? Celestia smirked at the apparent slip in language, and allowed herself a small laugh as she wrapped her wing slightly tighter around the Pegasus. I suppose you make a good point, young one. I just, with all of the responsibilities of Rule and Luna being back in my life, I cannot help but long for the days when I was but a filly, carefree and worrying about nothing but where we could play tomorrow. Rainbow shifted a bit and blinked as a fresh snowflake spiraled down into her eye. She pawed at it with a hoof and looked up, finding a light snowfall beginning to come down as Celestia continued to speak. It's just incredibly sad growing older. So much has changed, and there are some things that I know I can never have back. And even those things that I do have once again. Celestia sniffled a bit, trying desperately to fight back tears. They have changed. It's going to take quite a bit of time before I can feel comfortable again. I suppose I just wish I could relive those days when everything was some wonderful new adventure, and I had close friends and family that I knew at my side. The alicorn raised her wings slowly as she felt the Pegasus wriggle beneath it, trying to escape. The princess looked away in disappointment and closed her eyes, heaving a sigh as she listened to the crunching hoof falls, signaling her companion's departure. Of course the truth, even the partial truth, will be too heavy a burden to think about for the girl, and speaking earnestly was an error. Celestia felt her heart sink even further as her world once again became silent, save for a faint whistling that steadily grew louder over a scant few seconds. The impact was so sudden that it caused Celestia to let out a minor scream as her eyes flew open in surprise. A freezing sensation coated the entire back of her head as the snowball turned to slush, dripping down her back and running off into her fur. The princess stood, sputtering as she turned. A look of complete disbelief plastered upon her face as she beheld the guilty-looking Pegasus before her. Rainbow Dash stood, another snowball and hoof, looking absolutely horrified as she took in the sight of a dripping wet Celestia. Neither pony spoke for a long time as Rainbow's mouth hung open. Finally, she stammered and tripped over her words as she did her best to break the uncomfortable silence.
Oh my gosh, Princess, I'm so sorry. You said that you miss your fillyhood and just playing. And I mean, what's more fun than a snowball fight? Please don't send me to the moon.
Rainbow retreated, dropping her snowball onto the ground, and watched with fearful eyes as it sunk into the pure white mounds of snow below her.
Did I hurt you? Was there ice in that thing?
Celestia coughed, still in shock as she felt the last stopping trail of slush snake its way down the side of her neck and into her mane. The watery substance dripped downward, landing in the snow below with a muted squelch as she opened and closed her mouth.
No, I'm fine. The
princess fell silent and looked down to the pristine blanket of snow.
Princess, I should probably just go, huh?
Rainbow extended her wings, priming them for immediate takeoff if she found the act necessary.
Girl, I don't think I'm quite ready for you to leave yet, my little pony.
Celestia gave the ground a devilish grin as a portion of snow rose up, wrapped in golden glow of magic as it packed itself into a perfect sphere.
I would highly suggest that you dodged, though.
The snowball flew forth at dangerous speeds, and Rainbow Dash had absolutely no time to move before it crashed into her cheek, with enough force to send her head over flank into a mound of snow behind her. All that remained visible of the assaulted Pegasus was her polychromatic tail, waving about in the wind as she struggled to free herself.
Oh my! Rainbow Dash! Forgive me!
Celestia galloped forth, her horn lowered as she encased the mound of snow in a shimmering glow to move it aside. Beneath the powder lay a drenched Rainbow Dash, looking absolutely mortified and soaked to the bone. She spit out a mouthful of snow into the air, her chest heaving as she scrambled to upright herself, only to find Celestia biting her lip with a hoof over her mouth to contain her laughter. Both Princess and Pegasus stood on even ground, neither able to hide their grin as Rainbow's coat dripped dry. After several seconds, both ponies began laughing at once, unable to contain themselves any longer. Rainbow fell completely over in her mirth, almost crying with laughter, as she found it difficult to get to her hooves and ended up on the ground once again. The sight only caused Celestia to laugh harder, as she felt tears of her own stinging the corners of her eyes as she kneeled low, all hope for maintaining a professional appearance having completely gone out the window.
Forgive you?
Rainbow asked as she slept, once again tumbling over and earning another laugh from the Alicorn.
Yeah, you're gonna be sorry once I get back up. Is that a threat, Rainbow? I could have you detained for conspiring to... Ah!
Celestia jumped back and laughed as Rainbow fluffed up a cloud of snow with her wings, tossing it at the princess while she laughed as well.
Maybe it is! After all, you just tried to kill me with the biggest snowball in Equestria. Oh, well, this one will be bigger.
Celestia jumped up, flapping her wings as hard as she collected another mound of snow and drew it toward herself, forming a massive boulder of snow with her magic.
Hey! Fight fair! I don't have magic! This is crazy!
Rainbow panicked, grabbing as many tiny snowballs as she could form with her hooves before the coming assault.
You can't throw that! I'll die!
Celestia chuckled, smiling wide as she circled around in the air, her wispy mane trailing behind her.
Very well, I'll reconsider.
Slowly, a golden net of magic divided the snow boulder into nearly 100 smaller snowballs, all of which circled the smiling pony as she moved lower to the ground.
How about now?
Rainbow dropped her snowballs, whimpering slightly as she watched the swirling tornado of snow advancing through the air.
I'm totally screwed, huh?
Celestia paused to consider, arching a brow as her smile grew bigger still.
Yes, Rainbow Dash, you are totally screwed.
The Pegasus' shocked laugh as Celestia's phrasing was drowned out by a flurry of snowballs, and she soon found herself buried completely once again, her entire world turning white under the barrage of projectiles. The blinding curtain quickly lifted to reveal Celestia's smiling face, and the monarch offered a hoof to the girl with a light giggle. Rainbow accepted it, pulling herself up with a grunt before sharing the laugh, as she dusted herself off with a hoof.
Thank you, Rainbow. It has been a long time since I felt so free. I believe you showed me something quite important today with your rather bold approach to problem solving.
Rainbow shook hard, fluffing out her tail and wings to expel a clinging snow from them as she snorted.
So what you're saying is, you feel better?
Celestia nodded, her mind suddenly clear and her chest just a bit lighter as she smiled warmly at the much smaller mare.
I do indeed. Well, good. Because you're not gonna feel nearly as good in about 10 seconds!
Celestia tucked a hoof under herself in confusion, before realizing that she was in danger, and took a snowball to the chest as Rainbow reached down to grab another. With a surprised smile, the princess took to the air, rocketing off to slalom between the trees and avoid the flying projectiles.
Get back here!
The princess dipped her head as her horn began to glow, and scooped up another ball of snow before telekinetically flinging it behind her. A shocked cry, followed by a growl, met her ears as she flew, causing her to smile harder and laugh into the wind as she focused upon dodging the trees and snowballs from behind. As she continued to fly, Celestia kept smiling, and realized that she hadn't had this much fun in centuries.
I'm so going to nail you! Turn! Spike! Are you coming up to bed, or am I gonna have to come and drag you up to bed?
Just one more gem, Twilight, came the call from downstairs. The violet unicorn rolled her eyes and put a hoof to her head to rub away the oncoming headache. Late-night snacks had become routine for the growing dragon, and Twilight was on a crusade to stop them.
All right, but you better come right up here as soon as you're done.
Tiny footfalls echoed off the walls as Spike padded up his way up the stairs, carrying a bowl full of rubies and a guilty look as Twilight stared him down.
One. Oh, come on! I'm hungry! Spike, you know it's not good to eat late.
Twilight's statement was interrupted by a loud followed by a gout of emerald flame flying directly in front of her face. A fluttering sound reached her ears as a sheaf of parchment flew through the air, landing upon her carpeted floor with a muted thump. Spike set down his bowl and raised a brow before walking over to the scroll and holding it out to Twilight. It's got the princess seal. Think it's important? Twilight was hit by a wave of cold fear as she took the letter in her magic, eyeing it curiously.
It's almost midnight. It would have to be.
The worried pony slowly unraveled the scroll and held it out before her. As she began to read, her expression of angst changed to one of joy, and a wide smile split across her face.
Dear Twilight Sparkle, I think it is about time I sent you a friendship report of my own. Today, as I have many other days, I let the weight of my responsibilities get to me. It felt as though I would be unable to ever to be happy again. But when I least expected it, a friend pulled me out of a dark place. Rainbow Dash has shown me that while reflection has its place, brooding all alone is never good. It is necessary to focus upon the good times and making your day better. Dwelling in the darkened past is a sure road to unhappiness, and sometimes it is best to let go and move on. In addition to this, I learned another lesson. Never forget that even adults need to play, and allow themselves a bit of harmless fun. Try not to let your studies overtake you, and make sure to go out and enjoy the snow tomorrow. Maybe challenge Rainbow Dash to a snowball fight? I can confirm that she is quite skilled. Your loving mentor, Princess Celestia. Twilight levitated the letter to her bedside table with a smile, and shook her head. With a yawn, she climbed into the bed, only for Spike to jump up beside her, holding a ruby in each claw. Want one? Twilight rolled her eyes, catching on to the ploy immediately. Spike, you know ponies don't eat gems. You can have both, but then it's straight to bed. The little dragon hopped off the bed, pumping his fist in excitement, as he ran over to his basket to settle down for the night. Twilight allowed herself a giggle, and pulled the covers tightly over her body as she rolled to face the window. Far off in the night sky, the shining crescent moon and a generous swath of stars flickered against the blackness. As Twilight yawned and began to close her eyes, she somehow knew that her mentor was settling down to do the same. Thinking once again about the unexpected letter, the pony drifted off into a dreamless sleep, feeling completely content and looking forward to the new day. And that is my first dramatic reading of a fanfiction. Comment and let me know what you think, and I'll probably be doing more. Thanks for listening.